Hello and welcome to If We Pick the Winter. Hello and welcome to If We Pick the Winners 2024. I am joined with Mike Wendt of the Greater Cleveland Film Commission, as always. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the two other times we've done this, this is not a predictions video, though predictions will probably come up. These are the votes that we would actually make if we had an Oscar vote. Now, one thing I want to clarify for anyone who is unfamiliar. Now, we know each other and we know our tastes well enough that maybe we can make educated guesses, but we did not discuss our picks beforehand. Is that correct?
That is correct. That is correct. And thank you for having me again.
And the other thing, and one other thing I want to talk about, I admit to missing two big nominees. The only two nominees I did not catch are Past Lives and Zone of Interest. Both were kind of hard to find, and Past Lives was actually streaming, but it's like I believe it's on Showtime, so like the one streaming service I don't have.
Sure.
Uh,
Yeah, and Zone of Interest was it was put out there, of course, but it was put out very slowly. So yeah, a lot of people have not been able to catch up with that one yet. I was fortunately able to see it already. But
yeah, I so even though I missed those two, I still feel like I still feel like I can have an educated discussion of the nominations because I still saw most of them in broad sweeps, but you saw all of them, correct?
yes, I've seen all of them. There there are some categories I would be completely blind.
Mhm.
Like I haven't got to see any of the documentaries this year.
Mhm.
Same with the shorts. I've been trying to go to the theater, but
Mhm.
it's just sometimes time is not always my friend.
Yes, I think the Nightlight in Akron, Ohio actually had both Zone of Interest and a shorts.
Yes, they currently have the shorts, so I'm hoping to try to catch those at some point. But
Right.
again, it's sometimes my timing is not always on my side.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to throw out there, I don't know if you have an opinion on this, but I would like to but I would like to say for because I have so many people who work on some in these types of jobs,
Yeah,
I frequently feel so guilty that we don't get to talk about the technical Oscars, but this
sure.
year the one thing I will say is this year just split all the technical Oscars between Poor Things, Oppenheimer, and Barbie.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, those are going to be probably the big the big winners like for some people I think it could be considered that it's boring or something like that, but I think I mean they are three of the best movies of the year. So, it's hard to argue.
Right. Well, those were I suppose I'll have to go into greater detail later, but I I had my brother and one of his best friends actually saw all three of those movies and actually enjoyed them.
Yeah.
So, but I will talk. I guess I'll talk in greater detail about those. But since I know it's on our minds, and I know it's on a lot of people's mind. I do want to address the elephant in the room and talk about the snubs. There, there is one snub that I know is on everybody's mind, and one
Mhm.
snub that I'm sure is on both of our minds, and that is the complete washout of the Iron Claw.
Yes, the Iron Claw was I think because I always make my personal top 10 list. I think that was my number 3
Mm-hmm.
of 2023,
Mm-hmm.
and I am yeah, I'm very bummed out
Mm-hmm.
that it didn't get the recognition, and I think part of it has to do with the fact that it came out very late at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
um and then also in the past, I mean, the movie The Wrestler did get some nominations,
Mm-hmm.
but sometimes professional wrestling tends to be kind of thumbed down at
Yeah, I
by
hate to.
the elitist
Mhm.
academy.
I hate to say this. That thought crossed my mind as well because I do remember the wrestler getting I believe Marissa Tomei and Mickey Rourke were both in fact nominated,
Yes.
but it didn't get a whole lot of other nominations. I do also remember that Mickey Rourke was actually supposed to have a match with Chris Jericho, but he bowed out because he thought that if he did that, he wouldn't win the Oscar, kind of like how Eddie Murphy tanked his Oscar with Norbit.
Yes, yes. Yeah, no, that's still I still talk about that to this day, that I feel that Mickey Rourke was robbed of the
Mhm,
Oscar. He did lose to Sean Penn, and
mhm,
Sean Penn had a very good performance. It was a
mhm.
very good movie.
Yeah.
But does anybody talk about Milk,
Mhm.
you know, that much? I don't think so. I think
Yeah.
more people are going to talk about Mickey
Mhm.
Rourke's performance.
I I mean, I'm talking about the Iron Claw getting snubbed this year. Anybody who listened to last year's might remember me being upset that the Menu got snubbed,
Mm.
and I feel like Triangle of Sadness usurped that movie's Oscars. It's like, hey, year later, which movie are people still talking about?
Yeah, more people probably saw the menu, to be
But
honest. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, the Iron Claw is another movie where I took my brother and one of his friends, and like the other aforementioned Oscar nominations I was talking about, um, that's another movie that all three of us really enjoyed, and I
Mhm.
can't believe it couldn't even get Best Original Song because, like, my brother and I both added "Live That Way Forever" to our Spotify like list.
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's one of those things. Some things hit with the Academy, some things don't.
And and I'm not gonna lie, if I I I I I I God, this is my notes. There is a good chance I might have voted for Holt McCallany. I hope I pronounced his name right. For his, I might have given my vote to him for Best Supporting Actor if he got that nomination because he was such a complex character, and it's
Oh yeah.
amazing.
No, no, you're absolutely right. It was there's parts of that character, that he cares. He cares
Hmm.
about his family, but then also there seems to be kind of this almost like a slight cold-heartedness,
Hmm.
where like he plays favorites a little
Hmm.
bit, and each of their sons kind of felt like this. They want to get the approval of their dad, and he wasn't super loving.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's a very that's a very hard performance to do, because that the audience is probably not going to necessarily like you that
Hmm.
much. uh,
Right.
he gave it his all. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's also a character that even though Fritz von Erich was a real person, he could have come off like cartoonish with like his rankings and stuff like that, but he made it very believable.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's no, I mean, to be honest, like 2023 overall in general was a really solid year. There was,
Hmm.
it's really hard. I was hard pressed to find, I stopped making like worst lists, just because as somebody who works in the industry,
Hmm.
it's very hard to make a movie, so it's hard to really dog on something. But yeah, there were just so many
Hmm.
um, memorable films
Hmm.
released throughout this year. It was great.
Yeah, I pretty much stopped doing the worst nomination of the year for ostensibly the same reason. Like,
Mhm.
you know what? I admit that there were some movies that got nominations I'm kind of lukewarm on, but
Sure, sure.
it's like not only do none of them offend me, but I also kind of accept it as a fact of life. Like, yep, this is
Yeah.
the kind of movie that gets Oscar nominations. I just accept it.
Yes, absolutely.
Now, before I dive into the snub that's on everybody's mind, or should I say snubs that is on everybody's mind. Are there any snubs in particular that you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think one of the movies that I really enjoyed. Now, I mean, sometimes I tend to champion smaller films
Mm-hmm.
in general, but and forgive me, I'm kind of looking over my. I think one of the most egregious sub snubs is just the fact that the movie Asteroid City
Mm-hmm.
received zero nominations, and I would have thought that Asteroid City would at least gotten a cinematography
Mm-hmm.
nomination because the cinematography is just incredible, and also the art direction, the
Mm-hmm.
set decoration. All of Wes Anderson's movies
Mm-hmm.
have these very distinct, designs to them, and that hours and hours of prep went
Mm-hmm.
into that. So, yeah, I was kind of upset about that, and I thought also the screenplay was very
Mm-hmm.
original. That it should have gotten some love there, but it does. On a happy note, on a happier note, I think it seems that Wes Anderson right now, at least, is the favorite to win the live action short Oscar
Mm-hmm.
because his short, the um, Henry Sugar
Mm-hmm.
is nominated, and it might be his time to win the Oscar, which I think is kind of cool.
Hey, I did. Hey, I did. I wouldn't be able to say something about one of the shorts nominees.
Yeah.
But okay, let's peel the band-aid off and talk about the snubs that are on everybody's mind.
Hmm.
Margot Robbie and Greta Gerwig for Barbie.
Yeah. Well, each of them did receive an Oscar nomination. So Margot Robbie as the producer of Barbie and Greta Gerwig as the co-writer of the
Mhm,
screenplay. Um, I do think Greta Gerwig deserved to be in the Best Director
mhm,
conversation because this could have been an absolute, or Barbie could have been an absolute disaster in a
mhm,
lot of ways. Or it could have just been a forgettable movie that kids watched, and and maybe it still might have made a lot of money, but it may not have meant a lot.
mhm,
The fact that she was able to pull all this together and make it work as she does, I think should have been commended.
mhm.
And I also thought Margot Robbie, I mean, um, I love how the character evolves throughout the
Mhm.
movie.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
it could have also that could have
Mhm,
been like a one note, like, "Hey, I'm
mm,
Barbie," kind
mhm.
of performance. But the fact that her character goes through all these changes, I think is really cool.
Yeah, I mean, I am one of those people that I'm kind of upset about it because my gut reaction when I read the list of nominees was that like, okay, this movie is being nominated for Best Picture. I am kind of having a hard time understanding how you can nominate a movie for Best Picture and not nominate like the linchpin, the person who is basically holding
Yeah.
this movie together, the person like like the movie does kind of. I've said before that I vote for a lot of that a lot of my Oscar picks in the past like Brendan Fraser and The Whale, which I know we disagreed on, but bear with me. Like these are things where their performance essentially is the movie, and Margot Robbie is kind of close to that in Barbie. I hate to say, I do feel like some of the people who are I feel like people are justified to be upset about this, but I do feel like a few phone calls are coming from inside the house. Like,
Yeah.
you know,
It-
the
no,
irony
I'm sorry, go
with
ahead.
the film's themes, the irony of Ryan Gosling being nominated and Margot Robbie not. Like, at first I thought, ho ho, isn't that funny? But I see some people are really getting upset about that, and it's like, I don't think that's entirely fair because they are in completely different categories. And I hate to say this, but if Ryan Gosling were up for Best Lead Actor, I think he would have been snubbed too. I mean, I hate to say this, but Leonardo DiCaprio, Oscar Golden Boy, wasn't even nominated for Killers of the Flower Moon.
Sure. Yeah, and I think part of it maybe with Margot Robbie, it's a case where maybe everybody kind of assumed that she would be nominated for Best Actress. So some of them may not have ranked her as high on their ballots because it's a preferential ballot
Mm-hmm.
style. So I think there could be a chance where some people were just like, okay, well, she's definitely in, so I'm gonna rank somebody. I'm gonna rank Lily Gladstone a little higher or
Mm-hmm.
something like that. So we'll never know because they never reveal the numbers, but yeah, I think it's just yeah, it's unfortunate, and I think sometimes like with directors or actors, like there's 10 best
Mm-hmm.
picture slots, there's only 5 best director slot,
Right.
5 best actor, 5 best
Yeah.
actor slots.
This year in particular is the first time where uh, this is the first year in particular where I really felt like the Golden Globes have it right by having a comedy and drama. I guess I'm also thinking that because, man, I wish I could split my pick for Best Actress that way. But
Yeah,
uh,
no,
one other
absolutely.
thing I will say is I got a lesson in how it's not always what you say, sometimes it's how you say it. Like, Michelle Yeoh and Whoopi Goldberg kind of said similar things about the snub, but Michelle Yeoh was like a bajillion times nicer, just saying, there's a lot of competition. And I hate to say
Absolutely.
this, Best Actress, there are two of the movies that I'm kind of lukewarm on are in the Best Actress category, and I have a hard time saying, "Oh, that's the one I would kick out for Margot Robbie."
Yeah, for sure. No, it's yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes you wonder like what else went into it,
Mhm.
was there something that did somebody campaign harder? Did
Mhm.
somebody do a lot of things? I don't know.
Right. Yeah, I know that I don't know if this sort of thing happens anymore, but I know there was a lot of controversy over the fact that the musical version of Doctor Dolittle, uh, they famously got all these Oscar nominations basically because they wined and dined the 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 board members.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's I know famously that like there are certain people who don't like to campaign,
Mhm.
like Joaquin Phoenix, for
Mhm.
example. He's just somebody who doesn't really like it, but
Mhm.
he ended up winning for Joker. So
Right.
it's yeah, you know, some people love to do it, some people don't.
Mhm.
But
Right.
yeah, that's just how it goes
Right.
sometimes.
So, because it's the category we already talked about a lot, I actually want to start with Best Actress,
Sure.
and this is one I I don't know, maybe we'll have a similar vote, but I would like to know your pick.
So best actress, I will say, and this is a really tough category, because I really respect all of the work that was done. But I'm gonna have to say, because I recently rewatched some of this film. I'm gonna say Sandra Hüller for Anatomy of a Fall deserves the Oscar. It's a very complex performance, and she's almost in every scene of that movie,
Mhm.
so it lives and dies by her. And
Mhm.
she has to get, she basically has to defend herself, saying that she didn't kill her husband, and
Mhm.
um, so I think she did a wonderful job. Now,
Mhm.
real quick, I will say that a close second and third would be between Emma Stone and Lily Gladstone. I think
Hmm.
Lily Gladstone, it's a very understated performance, but very appropriate for the character. And then Emma Stone, of course, had to really go out there and
Hmm.
do some wild stuff. And she's really funny in that movie.
Hmm.
But I'm gonna say, yeah, I'll give it to Sandra Hüller.
Okay, I was taken a little bit by surprise. My pick, and I really hope I'm not just saying this. I really hope this isn't coming off like me just wanting to be on the winning team, but I am voting for Lily Gladstone. And I mentioned earlier that I really wish I could have like the comedy and the drama because I did really want to pick Emma Stone.
Sure.
And because, like you said, it was such a complicated performance, and there was so much she had to do, and I also thought it was kind of like immaculate casting that they got someone who's like a grown woman but still has kind of like a girlish face and
Yeah.
like youthful features. But at the same time, I guess why I'm giving the edge to Lily Gladstone is that uh, as 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 amazing as Emma Stone was, if I had to only pick one, I suppose I I I feel like complaining that her character is cartoonish is kind of like when people complain that Jack Nicholson's Joker is cartoonish. It's like, well, duh, it's a cartoon character, but I
Yeah.
suppose that is the one thing that gives Lily Gladstone the edge that like she's the one surrounded by all these loud over the top characters like and as Roger Ebert, whose idea I'm kind of cribbing here, once
Mm.
said, sometimes just being normal is a hard thing. Like just reacting, just like so much that she says without actually saying anything. And
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. It's a great performance. Half the movie
mhm,
she's like in a bed because she's sick.
mhm,
And she really, I think she really did do a great job with that. And
mhm,
so yeah, I mean, it's a really tough. I mean, that's one of the most stacked categories. I
mhm.
think is best
Yeah,
actress. Yeah,
yeah. It was the first, like I said, it was the first one that I had kind of a clean sweep on. It's like, man, there are some like I can't help but think that in a lesser year, uh, I can't help but think that in a lesser year, Annette Bening and Nyan might have ranked a little higher because she and Jodie Foster are like, man, for two recognizable faces, it's like, man, I thought I was seeing these characters, not these actresses.
absolutely. Yeah, that one is probably. I didn't like, or I wasn't like the biggest fan of that movie
Hmm.
overall, but I do admit that they gave good performances.
Yeah, it was a decent flick. I can see why you're not a huge fan of it.
Yeah.
Uh, the next category I want to cover is Best Adapted Screenplay.
Hmm.
And my pick is one I kind of had to go out of my way to actually see, and a movie I really enjoyed. My pick for Best Adapted Screenplay is American Fiction, which this year I feel it reminded me a lot of Dolomite Is My Name. Here you have two movies where you can probably tell just by the eyeball test, I don't have a lot in common with the leads of these movies, but
Sure.
in broad sweeps, their situations and their problems kind of hit home with me. Like, I'm not gonna front, I've actually like considered and even done variations of Jeffrey Wright's little Pierre Brosseau style social experiment.
Sure. Sure.
And it's not even just a brilliant premise, but I also just love how like every part of the buffalo gets used in that story. Like every direction you could picture with this screenplay goes that way. It is one of the it is the rare breed of screenplay where like I could see certain plot points coming, but it's only because like those would be good ideas. Like not doing them would have been missed opportunities.
Yeah.
And I don't want to give too much away, but there is one thing that happens at the end. Like in a lesser movie, I would say they ripped off Wayne's World, but they actually made it work.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that is that I love that movie. and the screenplay is a big part of it. I'm gonna that going into this, I kind of thought that was gonna be my pick, but actually, I think I would give it to Barbie,
Mm.
to be honest. Because Barbie was so it could have been such a it could have been such a different film, but the
Mm-hmm.
screenplay really makes that thing go. I mean, it's always funny.
Mm-hmm.
It makes you think,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just one of those things where um I could see potentially voters giving it to Greta and Noah Baumbach because she was not nominated for director. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna my vote would be for Barbie.
Right. Yeah, I admit I did that there were some, there were some jokes that had me rolling my eyes, but at the same time, that's something I give the movie credit for. Like the jokes that kind of frustrated me, they were like 2 seconds,
Sure,
and
sure.
I don't know. I feel like I don't want to talk about. I don't want to talk about why I didn't actually get to go to the big Barbieheimer double feature with my brother. All I'm gonna say is that I let's just say there's a reason I'm never gonna eat oysters again.
Oh,
But
okay. Wow.
yeah, let's leave it at that. Um, but yeah, I will say that even though there were some there were some issues I had with the screenplay. Like I will say one thing about the movie. I don't know if this is a credit to the screenplay or the art design or Greta's directing, but I respect the fact that they went to the well of a certain joke 4 times and it didn't get old.
Yeah.
That is
No.
an accomplishment.
No, absolutely. You know, it's I know certain people have issues with that movie, and
Mhm.
it doesn't hit people as much as maybe it hit me,
Mhm.
um but yeah, I just think the creativity is off the charts there, and like I said, it could have been a completely different movie without a strong script.
Yeah, and for anybody who's mad at me who might be mad at me about saying that some of the phone calls are coming from inside the house, well, don't worry, I got your back when it comes to Barbie because I will defend that movie for for all the uh, for all the complaints about it being man-hating rhetoric. I mean, the thing you got to remember is my brother had a great point where that all the men have the funniest lines, but
Sure.
I think that I mean, I hate to say this, but when Joe Rogan defends a movie saying it's not anti-man, and the movie is definitely about questions of masculinity, so I think it's foolish to call it anti-male when Ken's struggle is all about similar struggles. Like he's in this mess because he feels pressured to behave a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's yeah, it's yeah, sorry, I've lost my train of thought for a second. But no, yes, I completely agree with what you're saying.
Hmm. Okay, moving on to one of the big ones, Best Actor, and I don't know if we're gonna have a split decision on this or not. But who is your pick for Best Actor?
uh oh, yeah, another really strong
Mm-hmm.
um category. Um I'm gonna go. He's just been one of my favorite actors over for the last 20-ish years. And I absolutely adored this movie. So I'm gonna say Paul Giamatti for the holdovers.
Well, I'm just gonna cut to the chase and say we do not have a split decision because that is my pick as well, Paul Giamatti for the holdovers. Oh man, there was holdovers definitely made my top five. One
Yeah,
thing I will say, I'm a little disappointed that Dominic Sessa, who I was blown away when I found out that he was an unknown.
yeah.
Part of me is disappointed he didn't get a nomination as well, but I'm also not surprised because he is. and unknown. I kind of wonder if the fact that their performance is so, dare I say, symbiotic and tied together.
Yeah.
I hope that doesn't hurt Paul Giamatti's chances. I will admit I did consider, like you said, it was a strong category, and both Jeffrey Wright and Cillian Murphy put up
Yes. Oh yeah.
very good fights. In fact, I joked with my brother that dude, I know what movies you saw this year. You'd have to pick Cillian Murphy by default.
Yeah. No, I mean, and even Bradley Cooper gave a
Mhm,
really great performance. Even if like or I liked Maestro or I admired Maestro. I didn't really love that movie.
yeah, I hate to say it. That's one I'm kinda that is one of the ones I'm kinda lukewarm on. Like, I enjoyed watching it, but it was not a tippy top favorite. But that's the movie I was talking about earlier when I said, you know what, I get it. That's the kind of movie that just gets Oscar nominations. I accept it. Just
Yes, yes. I
uh,
mean that one scene alone where he's like conducting, it's like a single take. It's pretty impressive.
mhm,
But yeah, there's some parts of that movie, the way how it was structured. I kind of, you never really got to know exactly who he is.
mhm.
You just saw it was almost just like, oh, it's just Bradley Cooper doing a good impression or something.
Mhm.
So
I kinda see your point with that one, but, yeah, with Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers, and I don't know, maybe he will win it because the Oscars do love, uh, they do kinda love rewarding their legacy actors and people who their respected elder statesmen, but it would be a good performance to do that on, because like I said earlier, this is a movie that's kinda carried by his performance,
yes.
and I feel like I feel like I'm sort of conflating some things I've said earlier. Like you have another character who could have been like with some of his quirks and weirdnesses, he could have been cartoonish, but Paul Giamatti just made him feel like a real person.
Yeah, no, you're right. He's kind of a curmudgeon, but you learn through these little moments why he is why he is that way, and that he has this disease that makes him smell like a
Mm,
fish, and he
yes.
has this loose eye, but it's like you never really, it's like he doesn't when he just happens to have a loose eye. It's
Mhm.
like, you know, they don't like make fun of him for having it,
Right.
like it just happens that way. So yeah, there's something about that movie that really connected with me, and I think it's just because it feels like a movie from a long time ago, and
Mhm.
uh and it but because it feels like that, it also feels kind of fresh. So
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
yeah,
Like classic example of what's old is new again.
exactly, exactly.
So moving forward, since we talked best lead actor, let's talk best supporting actor.
Hmm.
I don't, and I admit that I kind of went back and forth on this one, and I feel like I feel like my pick and how I landed on my pick is what what we would call the latency effect. Like
I
I actually put, I mean, they're all entertaining. Like so many of these are good, but but a lot of them didn't. But a lot of them like good, but how do you pick that one special one? And I almost picked Mark Ruffalo for Poor Things, but I think I'm once again landing on the obvious pick and voting Robert Downey Jr. and Oppenheimer.
Yeah, no, it's he seems like he's like uh on the road to winning because he's
Hmm.
been winning everything. Um and no, and definitely I think he did a great job with that performance.
Hmm.
I I'm just gonna just to like shake it up a little bit. I'm just gonna say that I would give it to. I'm gonna give it to. Oh, I'm gonna give it to Mark Ruffalo.
Mm,
And Mark Ruffalo, I think part of it, which was hilarious, is I mean, you know, we've seen him the last decade or so as the Hulk,
mhm,
and and I think this particular performance allows him to be a certain like give a certain
mm,
performance that he's never really been able to give in a long time.
right.
So there's parts of that I think should be commended, but you know, probably I guess though it's like I should just say Robert Downey Jr. because he did a great job in it, but you know, Sterling K. Brown does a lot with his limited
Mhm,
performance. I thought that was he did really solid work there. Robert De Niro, it's
mhm,
really hard to like go against him.
right.
Uh, like he's such a sinister asshole in that movie.
Yes.
And but yet he still has this he gives like this likability that probably it's why like so many of the characters in this movie like kind of just listen to him, but they don't, it's like you don't really realize that he's also kind of evil incarnate.
Mhm. Yeah. Also, one thing I forgot to mention when we were talking about our best actor nominees,
Yeah.
I actually forgot until I sat down and watched the movie as research that I actually worked on the film Rustin. It's
Oh
like
wow.
I saw one scene, I forget which one it was, but I thought, "Oh yeah, this is the movie I worked on."
Yeah, that's cool. That is cool.
So, now that we have that, let's move to one of the other big ones, best director. And I think I may have already tipped my hat to what my pick is since it was already my select since I've already since I already said it's going to get so many since I think it should just sweep away the technical Oscars, but I am going to go with Christopher Nolan for Oppenheimer. I know I know it kind of seems obvious, and it's kind of funny. My brother, when I was talking to him about it, I think I actually sold him on why Chris. I think I sold my brother on why he deserves this. Like
Yeah.
the way that story is told, like the way it ping pong, it bounces between all these time periods and tones and styles. That is something that could have fallen on its butt so hard. Like I haven't actually seen it, but I've heard of the John Travolta Gotti movie, which from what I heard tried something similar, and people have told me that it just failed miserably. But um the fact that uh Christopher Nolan was able to tie all these things together and just like keep the suspense going. But and one thing I want to say is that when Barbie and Oppenheimer were released, I was actually on these medications that kind of made me anxious.
Ah.
Thank goodness I did not see Oppenheimer when I was on that medication.
Yeah,
I I probably would have had an anxiety attack.
yeah, I will also say Christopher Nolan. I think he would get my vote. He should win. I think he will win. Um, you know, he's been giving consistently solid work ever
Hmm.
since he debuted.
Hmm.
All those years ago, about 24 years ago.
Hmm.
And I thought he should have won a couple years ago for Dunkirk. I
Hmm.
thought he
Oh
did
yeah.
a job with that. And but yeah, this one it's just you know it's another kind of thing like Barbie. Like it could have been a completely different movie
Hmm.
in different hands, but the way how he constructed this thing, and it is a 3-hour movie, but
Hmm.
the way how it's constructed, you're never bored. It's like it's just always moving, and
Hmm.
that just shows the strength of solid direction, and um, the amount of actors he got in this movie that give great performances. It's just it's an incredible feat.
Right.
And even though some of the other nominated directors did a wonderful job, Martin Scorsese, of
Mhm.
course, he's one of the goats for a reason.
Mhm.
Justine Triet for Anatomy of Fall. I mean, that's a great movie.
Mhm.
Jonathan Glazer for Zone of Interest. I know you haven't seen that one yet, but that is that's a great directing feat because you know basically he made certain creative choices that I will leave because I don't want to spoil it for you, but like he made certain creative choices that are
Mhm.
really unique.
Yeah, even if I no longer need to do it for research, I still hope I get to see that one. And moving forward, best supporting actress. Now, who would you pick for this category?
I am gonna now this one. It's another kind of boring. I guess because she's been winning everything, but I legit would pick Divine Joy Randolph for the holdovers. I think once again, just kind of showing how much I really enjoyed the holdovers. But her performance was great, and
Mhm.
it's like there's a depth to her character. Um, we learned that her son was just killed,
Mhm.
and that's another role that could have just been this easy, just it's just the cook, blah blah
Mhm.
blah. But there's a level of complexity to her character, and she never really gets super super emotional. It's a very grounded performance,
Mhm.
but we grow to love her throughout the film, and I don't know. I wish all as you said, Dominic Sessa as well. Like I wish all
Mhm.
three of them were nominated. Like
Oh,
if
real yeah.
they had like a best trios thing, because like all three of them, like I just love them in that movie, and I could have watched like a 4-hour movie just with them.
Right, definitely.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying it because this is another one we don't have a split decision on because yes, Davine Joy Randolph is my pick as well. Um, yeah, I don't think I have anything that I can add to what to what you said. She also kind of did defy expectations because I could see like a lesser movie making this more of a sitcom-y character, but this is
Yes.
another case where she does feel like a very real person, like she's like someone who's who like everyone in that movie just feels like someone you could plausibly know,
Yeah.
and I just got nothing else to say about
No.
that. So
Absolutely.
I want to move on to my what's actually my favorite category, as I may have mentioned before, best original screenplay. And
Ooh.
since we're on a tear for giving it all the awards, I'm just gonna come right out and say my pick for best original screenplay is The Holdovers.
No, I that one is such a great screenplay. And I'm going to, oh man, it's really tough because I'm kind of between two films for this. And even though I just showered my love on The Holdovers, I think the screenplay for May December is
Hmm.
outstanding. Because that, I mean, that's just like it's a very complex movie.
Hmm.
I thought that movie was going to get a lot more nominations than it did.
Yeah, I thought I was gonna get more
But
nominations too.
yeah, just because the acting's so good. But I will also say The Holdovers. Even though like I'm kind of on the fence, but no, The Holdovers. Once again, it's like that. I think it's this guy's very first screenplay, which is kind of blows your mind a little bit.
Hmm.
That he could be nominated for his first, and get it made by Alexander Payne, who's
Hmm.
a great director, who's also one of the other ones who was not nominated
Yeah,
this year.
yeah, it's funny because before we shower praise all over the screenplay, I actually fleetingly considered The Holdovers. Well, it wasn't even nominated for Best Director, but I was actually thinking of it while I watched it because Alexander Payne did a great job setting atmosphere, like making scenes feel empty, making you just feel like the temperature of
Yeah.
places, the
No,
emptiness of these big buildings.
yeah. No, 100%. It's just one of those things that you know, the I wish there were 10 slots for director. That's
Right. And yeah, there's just so much to say about the holdovers. I mean, we kind of touched on the fact that it's like what's old is new because I could see this playing alongside a lot of those 70s character pieces, but
Yeah,
and you know it like it just goes so deep into these characters and like this is one of those movies. I talked about how um American Fiction, my pick, which was my pick for best adapted screenplay. That's a movie that like it takes these twists and turns. With the holdovers, it's a case where like there were so many points where I thought the movie was going to end, but it kept going, which is something that I would normally hate that. But
yeah,
the holdovers just made it work. Like I like almost this feeling of, man, I don't want to stop spending time with these people.
exactly. Yeah. It's yeah, that it's just the proof of strong writing,
Hmm.
strong characters,
Hmm.
overcome so many different things. And
Right, definitely.
I had to just double check if like I was like because I made that statement that said that this was his first screenplay and so he was a writer for TV. So this is officially his first screenplay, which is kind
His
of crazy.
first,
Kind of blows my
right.
mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, let me just say, between picking someone who wrote his first screenplay and picking an unknown actor, I gotta say, Alexander Payne must know a thing or two about picking some of the unknowns. So so from one Alex to another, Mr. Payne, if you're listening.
Absolutely.
Okay, and now we move on to the big one, Best Picture. And although I think I know the answer, you might surprise me. I'd like to know your pick first.
um, Once again, this might be a boring pick. But I'm gonna say Oppenheimer does would get my vote. It deserves it. Um, it is I think it's a movie that is going to be remembered for
Hmm.
quite some time. And just the craft at work that
Hmm.
that Christopher Nolan and his collaborators did. It's just like it's a triumph on so many levels: acting, cinematography, the editing.
Hmm.
Uh, the editing should definitely win the Oscar, I
Oh
think.
yeah.
The sound design, the score. I mean, yeah, it's head and shoulders. Even though I love all like I pretty much love all the movies that are nominated for Best
Hmm.
Picture, but I think it does stand above the rest.
Right. And one thing I will say, I have said before that I do have a certain respect for these big Oscar nominated movies that do in fact still connect with audiences because there is a stereotype that like, the Oscars just pick movies that nobody really likes. And I can think of a few examples. You got your Forrest Gumps, movies like No Country for Old Men, Silence of the Lambs, where they were big Oscar winners, and even Amadeus, which made a ton of money at the box office. These are all movies that were nominated for well, these were all Best Picture winners that did have a connection with the audience. And I will say this much: I frequently butt heads with people for the fact that I don't always like certain internet in jokes, but I actually did have a certain respect for the whole Barbieheimer thing, just because it's like, people are actually positive about something. They're like getting behind something. They're going to the movies. So I had a certain respect for that, like like not just being a good movie, but also connecting with audiences, which
Yep.
I mean,
You're
the reasons may be a little different from why No Country for Old Men or Forrest Gump connected with audiences, but why argue with success?
No, you're absolutely right. Whoever helped concoct this idea or whoever got this movement going, it was brilliant, I think, because it got a lot of people back to the movie theaters.
Hmm.
I even though I work in the industry, obviously on the film production side, I have very soft spot for film
Hmm.
exhibition. As somebody, I worked at a movie theater for a long time. I worked with the Cleveland Film Festival for a long time,
Hmm.
and audiences have still not come back to those pre-pandemic levels. So
Hmm.
anything that can generate people in interest to come back to the movies, I think
Hmm.
I'm all about it, and I'm glad that whoever came up with the Barbenheimer idea, that people ran with it. My wife and I did that, on July 21st, where
Hmm.
we saw Barbie at 4 o'clock, and then we saw Oppenheimer at 7. It was a pretty fun day.
Yes, and
Um,
unfortunately, because of reasons I alluded to earlier, I had to see
sure,
them on separate days.
absolutely.
Um, I did see Barbie first. I saw it while I was, like I said, I saw it while I was taking some medications that made me a little anxious. So I'm kind of glad I saw Barbie first.
Yeah,
Uh, though, if memory serves me right, Oppenheimer was going to be my backup plan if Barbie was sold out,
yeah.
because I was seeing it on a Saturday night, no less.
Oh
But
wow,
yeah, luckily that didn't happen. I went to a daytime matinee for Oppenheimer. I will admit that the length of the movie is what inspired me to go to that one. And one thing I do
sure,
want to talk about with Oppenheimer is it did kind of askew expectations. Like, I don't know how many people besides me listened to last podcast on the left, but
oh
over the summer, in preparation for the movie, they they did a special multi-part series about the Manhattan Project. And two things. One, after hearing about Niels Bohr, I kind of hope he gets his own solo movie because that man was a character. But
sure,
also, they talked about um they talked about all these expectations for the movie, and a lot of their predictions were not accurate. But
sure.
I hate to say this, I would have made those predictions.
Yeah,
I would have guessed that the movie would have been complete. I was looking forward to it, and I still would have guessed that it might have been kind of lugubrious, and Cillian Murphy's performance might have been mope heavy. But but Christopher Nolan took it in some different directions.
absolutely. Yeah. Mm,
Sadly, I must confess, despite heaping all that praise on it, I get the sneaking suspicion I know who's going to be on the winning team this year. But my best picture pick is not for Oppenheimer. Uh,
oh,
Part of it is, as much as I love that movie, I feel like it kind of dragged in that last third. Like,
sure.
I saw it on a daytime matinee, and that last third is kind of when I started checking my watch a little more. So, but my pick is I don't think it's too controversial because I see it's getting some awards recognition. I am going to go with Poor Things, which is a movie that took me completely by surprise, and you know, sort of like how going with what connects with people. I saw this with my brother and our friend, and my friend is not an art movie guy, and all three of us loved it. Like, we laughed, uh like we you know I described it as like what would happen if if David Lynch and Oscar Wilde collaborated on a sex comedy. And there was just so much going on. There were moments that made me laugh. There were moments that made me uncomfortable.
Yeah.
there were moments there were shots in the movie that I would not mind like framing on a wall. They were so beautiful and good looking, and it just
Oh
made me
yeah.
feel such a wide array of emotions. And like the fact that it like had this kind of like, some of the comedy could be like, oh, could be like, I don't know. I mean, I've seen some people complain about it, saying that, oh, it's just a remake of Frankenhooker, and it's like, well, first of all, this movie doesn't make you wait until the third act for what you want to see, but I digress. But
Right.
it has like, I mean, it's an Oscar bait movie. I hate using that phrase, but it's an Oscar bait movie that has comedy that you might that would fit in and is just as funny in like an '80s horn dog movie.
Right. No, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's the tones that Yorgos Lanthimos is able to to tiptoe with this one is really amazing. And I know quite a few people who that was their favorite movie of last year.
Mm.
I really loved it. I didn't love it as much as Oppenheimer for me.
Yeah, I can understand that. One thing I will want to say is, despite praising audience connection, it does. I I am not a fan of the fact that the Oscars and the Golden Globes have kind of wimped out. The Oscars has audience's favorite movie. It's like, come on, we have People Choice Awards for that, but it's
Right.
at least somewhat understandable compared to the Golden Globes best box office achievement. It's like, come on, guys, that you're just awarding you're not awarding like quality. You're awarding like you're kind of just heaping praise on top of praise, if that
Right.
makes sense.
No, that makes perfect sense.
But yeah, now for any of our listeners, for I know I recently discovered that betting on the Oscars is not technically legal in the state of Ohio, but in the past, Mike has gotten more Oscar votes than I have, and like I said, I get the feeling he's on the winning team for Best Picture at least. But yeah.
Well, I'm gonna say this year, like, I've started to put together some of my um I've started to put together some of my predictions, and I don't know.
Mhm,
I'm really I'm struggling because maybe it's just because I feel so attached to so many of these movies
mhm.
that I can't really make, good choices because I could see it going to, so many different things. So there's really not a lot of obvious choices, I think. So I mean, but there are some that I think are blatantly obvious. Like I think
Mhm.
Christopher Nolan's definitely winning. I think Oppenheimer's winning, but
Right.
we'll see what happens.
Right. So, before we go, is there anything you wish to promote?
I have a podcast that I co-host with a friend of mine named Aaron Spears. It's called Watch Challenge.
Mhm.
And you can find me on at clevelandfilm.com. You can find all my socials there.
Right. And you can find me on Instagram at ADCorv. That's ADECOURV. My movie Science Boys High School Reunion. As of this recording, you can check it. You can still currently watch it on Tenna TV's YouTube channel. It was recently added to the Kings of Africa YouTube channel, which I'm not entirely sure what it's doing there, but I'll take the W. Though it's also still on Amazon Prime and Vudu if you want to check that out as well. Mike, it was good talking to you. I wish you best of luck in your Oscar picks, and I hope everyone enjoyed the podcast.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.